Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cooldown Room Mexican Grand Prix edition. Just me and Bowser here again. Wibsy seems to be just like, I don't know, some kind of mythical beast at this point. He does exist, I promise you. He will show up to beat us in the cars, but then he won't talk about it. That's basically where he's at with him at the moment. Yeah, effectively, yeah. He's the Kimi Raikkonen, doesn't want to do any press interviews or anything like that. Ironic because he's quite a chatter on the actual stream, but there you go. But yeah, so we're going to talk Mexican Grand Prix. Literally finished like 20 minutes ago now. Is it? It must be like 20 minutes ago now. Well, we had the podium about 20 minutes ago. 10:48 UK time. That is not in Mexico. We've not had a massive time jump in Mexico. Uh, but yeah, so we're going to quickly gloss over the qualifying and then we'll talk about the race as a whole. But what were your thoughts on the race before we go? Like, did you enjoy it? Was it a good race for you? Or? Yeah, I mean, I think I called you and the red flag came on and told you openly how I felt, how it had been quite a boring race so far, and I feel like they kind of responded after that, and it got a bit better in the second half. But we'll get into that in more detail in a second. Let's go through qualifying first. There was a few shockers and a few nice surprises as well through qualifying. In my opinion, the shockers, Fernando Alonso. I don't know what's going on with him at the moment. He just seems to. It's like he's just turned off the switch. He's suddenly over the last 2 weekends become a lot worse than Lance Stroll. I don't really know what's going on there. It just seems bizarre. Maybe he's just stopped caring. It's like this car. I don't think it's going to get any better. I can't bother to waste my effort this season. I don't know, but yeah, shocker from him. Perez again, shocker. I don't really know what more to say at this point about Perez that I haven't already said. And Max Verstappen getting caught out by the Ferraris just suddenly coming out of nowhere and catching him out, really. But yeah, nice surprise as well to have Danny Rick back up there. It's nice to see him have a bit of a bounce back after his McLaren season, and everyone talking about, oh, he wasn't going to be great in AlphaTauri and that. Well, you've been proved wrong. So yeah, I think in general it was one of the better qualifyings we've had this year. Like, I must admit, going into those last few laps, I was hooked. I was like, I can't look away. I don't know who's going to end up on pole here. It was incredible. So, what are your thoughts? He's checked in. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely a performance gap between Perez and Verstappen that we've seen just getting bigger and bigger really throughout the season. Um, okay, well we've briefly talked about qualifying. Let's talk about the race. So lap one, Sergio Perez. Now I don't mean to just bash on the guy when he's down, but there becomes a certain point where you just need to take responsibility. And to be fair to him, he does seem to have done that in the interviews and stuff I've seen since. Entirely his fault, 100% his fault. I also enjoyed in the post race cool down before they went on the podium, Lewis Hamilton even going, "What's he doing there? Oh, he's done a me in Qatar." So it's quite evident that everyone saw it was Perez's fault. He's probably going to watch it back later and be like, why did I not just give more space? Because, yeah, I get it. It's his home Grand Prix. He wants to impress. You're not going to impress anyone if you go out in lap one. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head there. And, on the complete contrast to Perez, I think Daniel Ricciardo's had an absolutely amazing weekend. And he's done in this weekend what Albon's been doing at Williams all season and putting that car where it shouldn't be. I mean, to qualify fourth was incredible. Like, I mean, ahead of Merckx and Perez. Like, paid his wages in one race, hasn't he? Yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely, and he's thrown away points there that would have taken them ahead, clearly ahead of Alfa Romeo. Not like miles ahead, but what I mean is like instead of being equal points, they would have been ahead. I mean, yeah, they're still ahead from Haas now, which is brilliant. You look at how far behind AlphaTauri were beginning of this year, then you start to panic a little bit for them. But yeah, it does seem to be changing now. Whether or not Daniel coming back is a little bit of a fire under Yuki. He knows he's got to perform now, or he's got no chance of getting that Red Bull seat. But equally, I think very evident in both him and Sergio Perez at the moment that pressure is showing. Mistakes being made. I mean, Yuki, what on earth was he doing with that pass? I mean, Piastri was kind of confused on the radio, but he's like, he just cut across me. Like, I mean, it was needless. He only just started going past him. So at what point he thought Piastri's car would just disappear, I don't know. Um, yeah, Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Piastri did anything wrong at all. He did absolutely nothing wrong, and his race was solid. He had a solid race, Piastri. He's defending with against Yuki where he pushed him off wide. It was all fair. He didn't do anything that he shouldn't have been doing, and I got a lot of respect for that. Um, right, we've talked about AlphaTauri. Let's move on to another team that's opposite side kind of things. So AlphaTauri have kind of had a better weekend than they normally would have, even with Yuki having his issues. Let's talk about Aston Martin. A DNF with Fernando Alonso, which do you know? I actually never heard them say what was wrong with the car, and part of me just thinks, did Fernando just go, "Nah, I'm not doing this," and just park it up? I don't know if you heard about what happened to the car or not, but I had nothing on my coverage on F1 TV. And then Lance Stroll, what on earth was he doing going that tight to Bottas to the next corner? I just don't understand that. He had the part of the move done, Bottas gave him the space, and then he tries to squeeze him off the track. What was he going to think was going to happen? That just, yeah, again, strikes me of a driver who's desperate for a result, and just, yeah, poor all round. What felt funny in the car was the fact that he couldn't be asked. That's Yeah, I mean, I think you've got a fair point. I think I've got used to from the first half of the season of expecting that Aston Martin to make it to Q3, and it's just not there anymore. And I don't necessarily agree with that. That car was clearly a front runner for the first half of the season. I'd say by the time we got to Hungary, it started to drop off already. Um, so I wouldn't agree that he's been put in that car where it didn't deserve to be. I think he was delivering and Stroll wasn't. Was simply what it was. And this goes back to a point I've been making for quite a while now. Is that I still feel like that the Racing Point car that Perez won a race in. Um, I still think that was a better car than either of them made it look. And I will fight anyone who says otherwise on that until the day I die. Because, yeah, I mean, the fact that Stroll is now miles down the road from Alonso, I think it speaks volumes. Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, it's a big shock. I think though a lot of the questions that have to be asked at Aston Martin at the moment are, what on earth has gone wrong in the design rooms of those upgrades? Like they've clearly gone backwards with these upgrades, to the extent where Fernando Alonso's like, I want the old spec car, if your driver's saying you want the old spec car, he has no confidence in what your engineers have been making, which is not a good place to be in. If your driver has no confidence in the engineers, you've got a problem. And Aston Martin need to do something there. Now, I don't know whose decision it was, these upgrades, but they need to look seriously at it and go, like, was this the right person to make this call? Because clearly it's gone wrong very badly, and it's going to cost them millions of pounds. So, yeah. And potentially Fernando Alonso. If he gets fed up, he could just walk. And then, I mean, I don't know who they replace him with, to be honest with you, at the moment. Well, that's what they've still done that, haven't they? Like it's them and Alpine are the ones that seem to have dropped back. Everyone else is going forward. So yeah. But the point at which Stroll's completed the pass, where's Bottas to go? Like he'd have to literally leave, he'd have to drive himself. He'd have to literally go like that and turn himself off the track, which is not right in my opinion. Stroll had the room on the left; he could have gone around the outside. You're turning in on a driver with nowhere to go. It's but where was he going to go? Like he's already turning. Stroll's gone up the inside. Okay, but at that point, he's got nowhere else to go. There's no other track left. He's left him room, and then Stroll's just come across. I disagree. I disagree. I wish we had Wibsy here to make the final decision, but he's got better things to do that he won't even tell us about. So who knows? He's probably, I don't know, building a bridge or something. I don't know. I don't know why building a bridge. I was gonna say like dealing drugs. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't say that on a stream, but now I've said it anyway, so I should have just said it straight away. But he's not a drug dealer, by the way. For anyone watching this, just in case you come watch our streams. That explains why he's not replying to us. But no, I very much disagree, and I think if it was Bottas's fault, we would have seen an investigation go off about that, which I don't recall seeing Bottas under investigation. So we'll update on it. We'll update on it. I actually do have an update on that. Bottas has been summoned to the steward's room, so you may be right on this one, or you may be wrong. We'll find out, but he has been summoned, which means that they definitely are looking into it. So we'll see. We will see. I'm not even. Currently looking at a web article, but I can feel the smugness. Yeah, you look smug. But yeah, so we will see what happens with that. I don't know. I still don't think as much Bottas could have done to have avoided that at that point. So we will see. So that's one of those things that I agree to an extent, but it's where does Bottas go? Like he can't disappear. So by this logic, though, theoretically, then Leclerc's at fault for Perez because Perez is ahead. You see what I mean? And I would argue that that's Perez's fault, and the stewards would probably agree. So we will see what the stewards say. Yeah, absolutely. It's not a game. It's real life for them. And you know what? Let's if you're watching this, put a comment in the below the video, and let us know what you thought. Was it Bottas or was it Stroll at fault? It'll be interesting to see what you guys think. And I will try to put a post to say what the stewards decide there after it comes out as well, if I remember. Moving on though, so we've talked about Aston Martin, we've talked about AlphaTauri. Who's next, Bowser? Give me a team. Who are we going to talk about? So I thought the main thing of the upgrade was that they were trying to fix the tyre wear. So I would argue the upgrade is a fail if they were talking about it coming in to improve their tyre wear and then it's not done that. Yeah, left rear suspension and at that speed as well. That has got to be a scary ass crash when you're the driver. To be fair, um, you are flat out through that point. So Yeah, I mean, he got out of that car and he got himself over the barrier as quick as he could. Let's put it that way. He was, yeah, yeah. And Alonso had spun there earlier the weekend as well, so it can happen to anyone. But yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I felt bad for Hulkenberg. I genuinely thought he might just hold on to a point at the end there, and he just got nipped towards the end. Um, but yeah, I mean, maybe they'll perform in Brazil. I'm not overconfident. Sorry, Gunter, but it's not looking great for the rest of your season. Hopefully, they have actually put a lot of effort into next year's car already, and not spent too long trying to replicate Red Bull, only for it not to work out the way they were hoping. Yeah, okay, moving on. Yeah, we can go for Alfa Romeo. Not a great race for Bottas, and I think he only finished ahead of his teammate Joe, so not a great race for either. Qualified well, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there definitely might have been something going on as well, because I've definitely heard Joe on the radio saying about he was feeling really hot in the car, so maybe there was some other issue going on there. But yeah, all round, and another weekend where after the race started, I just didn't really hear much about Alfa Romeo again, which seems to be a bit of a trend for them throughout this season. Um, but yeah, so let's move on from Alfa Romeo and let's talk about Williams. I was pleasantly surprised with Logan Sargent in the race. And do you know what? I didn't think I'd be saying that. I kind of felt like he lucked into the points last weekend a little bit with the disqualifications and stuff. Um, Absolutely, 100%. And you know what? Fair play to him. He's got points. He didn't qualify the best, but he was fighting in the grid. He was on the grid, so he was fighting through the pack, and it was brilliant. And there was a move towards the end. For the life of me, can't remember who it was against, and I was like, that was absolutely brilliant. And just it seems to be that maybe getting those points has brought the boy alive. He just needs to sort out his qualifying pace, and Williams might keep him. And do you know what? I wouldn't blame them at that. If he's like that again in Brazil, I wouldn't blame them for keeping him. I think, sometimes it is easy to just go and drop a rookie straight away. Um, but he's finally seems to be getting it together. Is it too little, too late in the season? Have they already made the decision? We don't know. Hopefully, for his sake, he can have a good last few races and that give them a good reason to turn around and go, yeah, let's keep him. What have we got left? We've got Brazil, Las Vegas, Abu Dhabi. Is that right? So Las Vegas, no one's been to before, so he's on equal footing with everyone there. So if he can have a good weekend at Brazil, just needs to keep it out the wall. That's the thing. He needs to keep it out the wall, and have a good race in Brazil and Abu Dhabi as well. And I think he could be on for one. Yeah, I was impressed with the level of racecraft that I've not seen from him all season. So yeah, and Alex Albon, he did what Alex Albon does. He got that Williams where it shouldn't be and put it in the points. I mean, at what point do we stop saying he's putting this Williams where it shouldn't be, and that the Williams should be there? That's a question to ask. But I do think Albon is doing an absolutely stellar job in that car. I think many times throughout this season, Red Bull have been looking longingly at him and thinking, what if we'd kept him in this Red Bull instead of ditching him for Sergio Perez? Because if you think about how he's developed, if he'd continued that, then we could have had a great little pairing at Red Bull. But I mean, don't get me wrong, Perez was great in his first year. I'm not saying he's been terrible the whole time. He just doesn't seem to be there anymore, um, which is sad. It's always sad to see when a driver's getting dominated by their teammate. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Williams? I'd like to get the Sky F1 team and just compare their commentary from what they were saying about him before to what they're saying about him now, and just be like, maybe you were being a bit too harsh on him before. Mm. No, what's happened is you look there. That door has been pushed over by one of my cats, and I'm assuming that my washing machine can now be heard. So just bear with me 1 second. Do you want to talk to the lovely people about Williams whilst I'm doing this? Yeah, I mean, you're looking at someone like a Fernando Alonso deciding, I've had enough of Aston Martin, I'm going to retire. And then maybe a Sainz moves from Ferrari or something for their own project to be number one driver or something like that. That's the only way I really see Albon being able to move up the grid, unfortunately. But he seems quite happy at Williams, and maybe he's quite happy to be there and be building them up, like George did before. Um, yeah, I don't know. But if Williams continue to improve and Alex is there, he's put himself in a good spot. So if you think about it, they had a little bit of improvement compared to last year. This year with the car, if they do the same kind of leap again next year, they'd be mid points all the time. So yeah, I think it's one to watch that situation, and yeah, I think unless something like that does happen, this could be Williams on the up. If something does happen and Albon leaves, then I think Williams are in a big problem because, again, who do you fill that gap with? That's a big issue for them if he does get snapped up by someone. Let's wait and see. Yeah. I mean, what to say about Alpine? I didn't really see much of them. They were kind of in the mid pack, outside the points, and that was about the story of their race. Really, they qualified badly and they didn't race much better. Um, yeah, bet Ocon felt like a right muppet after that, didn't he? Yeah, imagine if he hadn't got him, that would have been. On the F1 TV coverage at the time, I don't know what they said in Sky, but on the F1 TV coverage at the time, like, oh, there's Ocon trying to get onto Drive to Survive. Yeah, yeah. And do you know what, though? Other than that, don't really remember him being mentioned the whole rest of the time. So, yeah, and Gasly finished behind him as well. So, yeah, a pretty anonymous weekend. I mean, yeah, he got a point. He did get a point. And fair play. They need them because at the moment they're dropping backwards. So, I mean, I think they're pretty safe from anyone catching them because of how good they were at the beginning. They got quite lucky they had an all right car then when McLaren was doing shit. By my language, sorry. Yeah. How much of this has all gone horribly wrong because Alpine decided midway through their season to sack half their management? Like, doesn't seem to have been any improvement since then. So, yeah, I mean, maybe they were like, oh, well, this doesn't look like it's going to be going very well, so we're going to sack you, and maybe that's why they've sacked them. But, I don't know, Otmar Zak now is not someone I would put down to being that bad. Like, I think generally he's moved on from places, like, he moved on from Aston Martin because he didn't gel with Lawrence Stroll, really. That was what it came down to. So maybe he just doesn't go on well with upper management, but if you leave him to it, like they did at Racing Point, he'll get the job done, kind of thing. Um, but yeah, since he's gone, there's been a dramatic drop off, I think, in Alpine, which is sad to see, especially with the amount of investment they've been getting recently. All these Hollywood celebrities and all that investing in them. They've got to be one of the teams that's got the most cash, probably, actually, at the moment, with all this money coming in, and just not doing anything with it unless they've just decided, you know what, we're writing off this season, we're not going to catch anyone, we won't be caught, let's just put everything into next year. I mean, I hope that's the case, because otherwise this is not a good sign if you're an Alpine fan. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, there isn't really anyone else out there. I mean, who else are you going to hire? Matteo Binotto? Which, his tenure at Ferrari didn't really, like, blow me away. He had that one good season, yeah, granted. I mean, there probably was a few management, but they're also thinking about, he would have been largely responsible for the car that did well at the beginning of the new rule regulations. I know he was sacked by the time it really got going, but he would have been part of the team that developed it. So he's really the only other one out there that's like a known name that you could have brought in. And the thing is, like, but then you say that. I mean, they did that with Williams. They brought in a bunch of people, and I don't really know how much it really helped. They weren't really there long enough to tell long term if it was working or if what James Vowles come in and done instead is what's fixed it. I wasn't blown away by what Williams did during that time, but again, it was a period of rebuilding, so we just don't really know. Yeah, and to be, yeah, exactly, and it's been a team that's been underfunded for years and stuff, and so I do think that they were hard done by a little bit by being given it at that point, and then, I mean, they've left of their own volition. I don't think they were kicked out or anything, from what memory serves. But yeah, it's interesting at the moment. Like, personally, at the moment, the team that I think needs a team principal the most, like a change, is probably Aston Martin, and they're not going to bring Otmar back there, so I don't see anywhere else really he's going to go onto the grid unless Haas decide they're going to get rid of Gunter, which I don't think is going to happen because I'm pretty sure he has a stake in the team, so I don't think he's going to be going anywhere unless he wants to. And yeah, it's not like he can go to Audi or Sauber is going to be next year, because they've already sorted that out. So yeah, I don't really know. Anyway, let's move on to McLaren. I don't think he'd have won it though. I don't think he got a podium, but I don't think he'd have won a race. It's a good time for Ferrari to sort it out towards the end. There's only 3 races left. It's good to get on the scoreboard. I just want to double check something quickly. Oh dear, I've just been told that someone can't hear you, which is interesting. And I'm hoping that you've not been talking this whole time and not being able to be heard. Bear with me 1 second. Just for people at home, I don't understand why you're not being able to hear Bowser, but bear with me 1 tickety boo. It's strange because I can hear you perfectly fine. It's just no one's been able to hear you. I mean, I walked away earlier. People were just watching you talking without airing anything happen, which is really weird. Yeah, he's very good at being a mime. For those who don't know, I don't know why I'm trying to concentrate. I'm trying to work out what this on this issue. Just checked back, and nope, you can't hear him. Okay, right. Well, I don't really know what's going on here. I do apologise, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see if I can do this, and then do that, and then change that to... No, okay, that didn't work it either. Okay, bear with me 1 second. I think I've worked out what this needs to be. Why is that not working? Okay, we're going to try something here. Bear with me. Bowser, speak.
Check 1, 2.
Yeah. Say again, sorry?
Hello. Check
Yeah,
1,
okay,
2.
I can hear you now. I can't hear you. My headphones are apparently the issue. Don't know what makes that happen. But yeah, right, okay. Now you're echoing. Yeah, okay. You're going to have to put up with the echo for a minute for whilst I let Bowser continue talking, so just bear with me. Bowser, do you want to take over and continue about McLaren and Oscar Piastri for me?
Yeah, I'll take over. Yeah, so Piastri's side of the... hello to anyone that hasn't been able to hear me up until now. Apologies for that. That's going to make that Bottas and Stroll conversation a little bit interesting, if you only heard one half of it. But yeah, so Piastri, another solid weekend for him. Avoided the mistakes that Norris got caught out in Q1, so fair play to him on that. Was a bit crazy, obviously, as a car that. So, yeah, a solid weekend. Disappointing probably to finish behind Norris in the end, but not sure necessarily whether he burned his tyres out, which we have seen a couple of times this season, burning his tyres out a little bit earlier than Norris. So maybe in his rookie season, he still needs to learn a bit more about the time management side of things. But
just bear with me, Bowser, because I don't think we're hearing you anymore. Again, now I put headphones on. What's going on with this? Right, okay. I'm going to try something quickly. Right, okay. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take these off again. The second pair of headphones does not fix it. Right, do you want to keep talking?
Yep. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. Okay, cool. Another solid weekend for him, and it'd be very interesting to see what he can do in the last couple of races. But I've been super impressed with him throughout this his rookie season. Hopefully, he'll learn a bit more about time management moving into his second season, sort of get to grips with those a bit more. And but I think he's more, Lando's very highly rated throughout the paddock of his quality. So I think to be even anywhere near him, then that's a massive accolade in your first season. So fair play to Piastri, and a sprint race winner as well. So yeah,
absolutely. I agree with you there. I think it's been a different weekend for Oscar, but I think he still managed to do all right in the race. Sorry, it's completely thrown me, all these technical issues that have just suddenly come out of the blue. I'm now sat here like some kind of pop star trying to keep the mic far enough away that you're not getting an echo there at home, ladies and gentlemen. McLaren's weekend was a bit of a weird one, wasn't it? I just don't understand where Oscar's performance was in the race compared to Lando's a little bit. Like, Lando really came through the grid quite nicely there.
Yeah, I think there was an element, like I say, of better time management from Lando. Seemed to be able to run really fast without burning them up too much, and whether Piastri took a bit too much out in maybe those first few laps. It's or maybe he was carrying an issue that we just haven't heard about yet. But played that team role perfectly with Lando. When the team said move over, he did. Accepted that Lando seemed to be quicker car and had a better chance, and Lando did brilliant in getting past Russell and Ricciardo in the end as well to score them some valuable extra points there. So fair play to Piastri playing the team game and still came home and brought some solid points back with him as well.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. McLaren are a team that's very much been on the up this year, so it's nice to see. You think back, 4 years ago, McLaren were a very different place. You go back even further, then McLaren were barely getting points. So, the turnaround in form for the team as a whole to where they are now is brilliant, and let's just hope that they can keep it going next year and don't drop off.
Yeah, I think they've had a couple of times now where they've had have gone the wrong way over the winter with development and turned up to the first race or winter testing with essentially a poor car towards the back of the grid, and they've had to use a lot of their resources and time for that year just trying to get back on pace with the rest of the cars and get back to where they know they should be, rather than having that kind of position to start with and then being able to push on and really challenge the top teams. So it'd be interesting with a limited amount of changing over the winter of the rules, and they can hopefully keep their trajectory going north and be able to hopefully, I think it's what everyone wants now, is just somebody, I don't really even care who it is now, just not necessarily knock Red Bull off their perch. I think it's more of a case of just give them a race.
We just want a 2012 season is what we want. We want 2012 where it's fighting away. Actually, 2010 would be better. Yeah, 2010 where it goes down to the last race of the year. I mean, the closest we had to that was 2021, but that was only 2 teams. We want like 3-4 teams going for it again. That'd be absolutely brilliant. Yeah. But let's move on quickly. It's we're running out of time. Really, we're going to try and do this within an hour. Let's talk about Ferrari and their weekend. Qualifying, absolutely brilliant. Race pace didn't really exist. They did enough to kind of hold station, and that was about it, really.
Leclerc did fairly well with the damaged front wing for his first stint. Managed to pull nearly 8 seconds out on Sainz with a damaged front wing.
What does that say about Ferrari's engineering department? We removed parts, and the car went faster. And it wasn't just in the straight lines. He went faster over the whole lap. So,
but the extra top speed probably would have helped on those long straights.
Well, yeah.
But yes, it's got to be consistent. He obviously wasn't losing enough in the corners to really cost him. So again, I'm not really sure what was happening. Again, Sainz used to have these like amazing races at certain points in the season, and then he'll just have 1 or 2 races where nowhere in comparison to Leclerc, and I can't quite work out whether it's Leclerc just being brilliant, but when you look at them in qualifying, you kind of think it wasn't that case this weekend. So it's just a shame. Like if Carlos could pin a whole season together, I think it'd be a real, contender.
I do agree with you to an extent. There was that period of time, though, where it just seemed like Sainz was showing up and Leclerc wasn't. So I think they both got circuits that suit them better than the others. And I think that for Leclerc, Mexico is one of those. He's been on pole before here. Let's not forget. And so, yeah, I think it's just a case of Ferrari have 2 drivers who are like different tracks differently, and they don't have a very consistent car. So I think if Ferrari can make some steps forward next year, I still think that Leclerc-Sainz is one of the stronger driver pairings on the grid. I think Ferrari, given the right machinery, then they could take it to Red Bull, especially at the moment where they've got one driver that's up for the fight and the other one that's struggling. And I think that Ferrari have 2 drivers who are basically up for the fight. I mean, let's not forget Sainz is the only other driver that's won a race this year that isn't a Red Bull driver. So there is fight in them, there's talent in them, and if Ferrari can give them a car, we can have a season. But then you could say that about 4 or 5 of the teams on the grid. So I think it's a very similar situation at McLaren. I think both drivers are talented. The McLaren gave them a car that's got pace in it, and they suddenly took the fight to Ferrari in a few Red Bull in a few races. Equally, Mercedes last weekend seemed to step up a bit. Lewis was able to take the fight to Max. So,
and George has proven as well that he can be there with Lewis. Again, has some weekends, but
let's move on to Mercedes now. Actually, in fact, and talk about that. George seems to be dropping off at the end of this season. Is what I'm thinking. Like from where he was compared to Lewis at the beginning of the season, that gap seems to be widening.
I agree. I think to be fair, it's difficult because I think we've come to 2 racetracks where Lewis has proved in the past that these are, they really suit him. I mean, Austin. He's an absolute maestro around Austin. He's proven that year on year, even in bad cars. He managed to take that McLaren to a win there. So, and then again, Mexico, he's had great success over the years as well. So I think, I think anyone would struggle against Lewis at these 2 races. Machinery, but George has proven, especially last year, but plenty of times throughout this season as well, that he's, the right circuit, he's right out there for a fight. I think it's quite similar to Leclerc-Sainz in that kind of dynamic, that if Russell can improve on getting up to Lewis's level on some of Lewis's specialist tracks, then I think he'd be more than a contender.
Let's not forget that before they changed the concept to go towards the Red Bull concept, that Russell did beat Lewis over the course of the season.
He looked more comfortable in that concept for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, fine. Let's bring ourselves to Red Bull and this to a kind of a close now. Sergio Perez, we don't really need to talk about. He's had a terrible weekend once again. He just needs to catch a break. I think he needs to just put it together and have an incident-free weekend where he finishes third. That's all he needs. He doesn't even finish second. He just needs to finish on the podium, and I think he'll get his mojo back. But he just can't seem to do it. Today, I think, was a sign of frustration and desperation a little bit from him. I think he wanted to show off to the fans as well. I think he was part of it. He wanted to give them a show. First lap, why are you throwing it away? Like, it's a silly thing to do. It's one of those things that when you play the game, the engineer comes on and goes like, right, remember, there's more than one lap. You got to think a professional racing driver at this level should know that. And yeah, it's simple mistakes, but they're adding up. And do you know what? I think Red Bull have got to be looking at the damage bill from that as well. I'm thinking that's another chunk of money we're throwing away here. But it didn't need to be. He could have easily just sat behind Leclerc and Max into that first corner. He'd have got Leclerc by 3 laps later, Max. He wouldn't have got Max. He wouldn't have got the win, probably, but he'd have been second. He'd have been 1-2 for Red Bull, and it would have been what he needed. Instead, he's tried to be the hero, throw it down the outside, turned in early, and hit himself out the race. And it just screams of desperation to me.
Yeah, there's been so much attention on him this weekend, so whether he's been distracted a bit too much. I know some people, Lewis especially, says that he gets an extra couple of tenths from his home crowd, which I think obviously if you use it in the right way, but I've definitely sort of seen it in other workings a negative in the past as well, where you've got all that expectation, especially on a when you come to a track like Mexico that's only got one Mexican driver on the grid these days, and but on the same breath, I've seen this multiple times. That Red Bull is so dominant, and I know we haven't seen. Well, early in the year we did see Checo making some good drives through the field, so especially with that extra DRS advantage that they seem to have as well. But it just seems to not get the concept of like he probably won't beat Max unless Max has an issue. Except for those 2 ones earlier in the race, which seemed to be tracks that really suited him. But he seems to be trying to do too much in turn 1. I mean, you look at Max, for example, in some of the races, like won't necessarily. I mean, on this occasion he did, but he was more cautious with Leclerc and into turn 1. Because he knows that, worst case scenario, if he doesn't come out of turn 1 or turn 2 or turn 3 in this occasion in the lead the race, he knows he's got the car that he'll get them eventually, and he doesn't need to do it and beat the hero in turn 1. It's that age-old saying of you can't win a race at turn 1, but you can certainly lose it.
And that's exactly what happened for Perez today, isn't it?
Exactly what happened. Yeah. And it's happened multiple times throughout the season as well, which is why in such a dominant car, you're seeing Lewis actually, giving him
20
a real
points
problem.
Away.
Exactly, 20 points. And it was with that fastest lap at the end as well. Yeah, 20 points. And that Mercedes has been, at one point this season, 1.2 seconds a lap off the pace of the Red Bull.
Yeah.
And he's only 20 points behind, and with momentum that looks like he could catch him. In the like. How
and
much
the rumours going around about what will happen if he does. That's not good news for Perez. But on the flip side, we've got Max Verstappen, who I genuinely think, if there hadn't been a red flag, could have won by about 45 seconds today.
Yeah.
But I think by lap 5, he was already like 10 seconds clear or something stupid like that. It was a ridiculous pace that he had, and he wasn't even really having to push. Like, can you imagine if he was trying to push the whole race, the gap he would have? I think it's insane. I'm not a massive Max fan. To be quite frankly honest with you, I'm not a fan of Max, but he's bloody talented. And I will admit that. And just that Red Bull car and him as a pairing is scary, to be quite frankly honest. And I really want someone to sort the shit out so that we can have a race again, because, yeah, I'm bored of watching Max Verstappen and the Dutch national anthem every weekend.
Yeah, it just seems to be like everyone's fighting for second, isn't it? But it's, like that. First of all, you've got to say, hats off to him. Whether you want to argue that they've developed it towards his style, whatever you... I mean, if they have, fair play, because it's obviously worked.
Yeah.
He would have been ahead in the constructors on his own. So fair play and consistency. But this is what I say. I think I mentioned it in the previous video. It's if you look back at dominant cars, so we're looking at that Lewis in the Mercedes before Max. You're looking at Vettel in that Red Bull before as well. They just seem to churn out results consistently. Once as long as they sort of stay confident in the car and everything, then they're so consistent. They don't seem to make mistakes and they don't take additional risks. And that's part and parcel with having a dominant car. You just know you don't need to shove it up the inside of turn one and try and get track position, because they know that 2-3 laps later, once that DRS turns on, it's theirs anyway, and there's nothing anyone else can do about it. So they don't need to drive at 100%. They can drive at 95%, take less risks, unlike Perez is doing, unfortunately, at the moment. And they know that they've got the confidence that they'll just be able to get there. Or even if it's a track that's really difficult to follow, they've got enough pace to wait for a gap in the road, hit them early, undercut them, get track position, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
As we saw in Austin as well. So you've got to look at it as a whole picture, but at the same time, you've still got to be there. You've still got to drive it without making the mistakes. And as much as I'm the same as you, I'm not Max's biggest fan, and I don't generally tend to give him too many compliments throughout the years. However, at this particular point in time with that car, he's driving phenomenally and doing what Checo can't. And Checo's no slouch. We've seen in the past. He's not a bad driver. No, there's only 20. These are the 20 best drivers, arguably, in the world. So,
yeah,
none of them are bad drivers. We're not saying that they're bad drivers. They're all incredible drivers, even down to Logan Sargent. They're incredible drivers to get there in the first place. So to be that far on top at the moment of all of those 20 as well, fair play. I mean, however much you like anyone personally or not, you can't argue. He's doing a phenomenal job. Red Bull doing a phenomenal job, and the fact that we're so frustrated wanting other teams to join them is only an additional compliment to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a perfect point for us to finish on here today. I would just like to bring up one more thing before we finish, and that is the awful scenes that we've seen in the audience of the Mexican Grand Prix. Fans being assaulted. Ferrari fans being assaulted after the crash with Perez and Leclerc into turn one. Someone thinking it's a good idea to go and punch another supporter is never okay. It never will be okay. It's not something we want in our sport. We're not football. We don't have hooliganism, and it's completely disgraceful. And the fact as well, there was no security around and other fans had to sort it out is appalling. The FIA need to really sort that out. That shouldn't be happening. The guy did get ejected, but the fact that it happened in the first place is disgusting. And I've nothing but bad things to say about someone who wants to do that kind of thing because of another a mistake that their driver's made, or even if it wasn't a mistake, even if it was a Lewis and Max, Silverstone incident, there's no reason to go and hit another person about it. Like, at the end of the day, we're here to watch a sport. It's supposed to be a fun and enjoyable family atmosphere. And this kind of behaviour is just not acceptable, and I hope that guy is banned from all sporting events worldwide, personally. Yeah,
it's not what you want to see. At the end of the day, it's sport, It can get very tense. There'll be a lot of emotions involved, but that's no excuse for any of that kind of behaviour. So, like you say, we don't want to see it in a sport that we love, and let everyone do their talking on the track. And again, I mean, it goes down to the booing as well at the end. Charles Leclerc basically during his own interview having to kind of instantly defend himself.
Well, not even that. He in his interview took the blame when it wasn't his fault because he was trying to appease the fans.
I think he just said I had nowhere to go, but it's.
Well, he kept saying I didn't mean to hit Perez. Is what he kept saying, which to me made it sound like he was taking the blame, and it was not his fault at all.
It was probably crowd control at that point, but like you say, I mean, we've heard it from Max a couple of times this year as well.
Yeah, there's no need for it. It used to happen to Lewis and stuff as well.
Yeah, and Rosberg as well when they were having
Rosberg, and Schumacher before that. I mean, Schumacher used to get riled up off of it. I remember that, but it's not something that's needed.
No, it's just not. At the end of the day, these 20 drivers, 22, 24, whoever it's been in the past, they're putting their lives at risk for what is I mean, obviously there's a lot of reward for them, whether it's financial or exposure, celebrity status, but at the end of the day, they're putting their lives on the line for our entertainment. So there's nothing but respect from myself, and I can speak from everyone else at Ivy Racing as well, League, that whatever happens in the race, whatever happens behind the scenes or anything like that, it's a high intense sport. There's a lot of risk, there's a lot of reward, and at the end of the day, when the drivers get out of the cars, you just got to be respectful of what they've achieved just to even get that car round one lap, let alone 50, 60, 70 of them. So exactly. Don't want to see it, and we don't want to hear it either, and it's just no need for it. And be respectful, be happy, be glad that they are there doing what they do, and we tune in every week and have start things like this to break it all down, and we just love it so much. And
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point to end on, to be quite frankly honest. Thank you very much if you've made it this way through the video. We normally stream our Racing League on a Thursday night. We are not going to be doing it this week. There is a reason behind that though. That is because we are doing a charity event on the Friday, which is going to be a 24-hour live stream of another game called The Forest, in aid of Macmillan Cancer. So if you're around on the Friday and you want to come support us, you can do that on Twitch. Our links are on below. It's for a really good cause. We're going to be doing it for 24 hours, so please come and give us company, because it's going to be a hard thing to do. I know it doesn't sound necessarily hard, you're going to be gaming for 24 hours. It's still 24 hours. We have to try and stay awake and stuff, so and we're playing a survival game, so it's going to be quite tense at times, things like that. We're going to have like little incentives, like you donate a certain amount of money, then we'll do things on the stream, which is going to be a good laugh. So hopefully come and get involved and have fun, enjoy it with us, raise some money for an amazing cause. And hopefully me and Bowser will be conscious enough to potentially talk about the race next weekend as well on the Sunday. We will see if we've recovered by that point on the Sunday. We won't be doing a qualifying one, just solely because we will likely have finished the stream 2 hours before or something like that. So there won't be a qualifying one, but we will definitely try and do one after the race if we are still conscious. But yeah, thank you very much for making it through this and everything else, and I'm really sorry about the technical issues with Bowser. I will look into that and find out why we couldn't hear you for a majority of that. It seems silly that plugging in a headset should cause that issue, especially when one of the other headsets that I plugged back in was one we normally used last time and it worked fine. So we've got some technical issues there. I do apologise for that. We will get that sorted for the next one. But yeah, for now, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.